There's two. I think the first one looks bigger though. Crazy. Might be a sow on the left. Definitely smaller bear on the left. Must be a sow. Crazy, though. It's just sitting down. They're complacent with each other during salmon season, aren't they? That bear just caught a fish out of the water down there. Cannot believe that. No way. Missed it on the camera. Got it in the water. Wow. Here it comes. Oh, I should probably go shoot that bear. Uh-oh, here we go. Come on up. I'll get a good look at you from close. Oh, lucky bear so far. Well, it's not over yet.
Alright. Late start for in here, but not a late start for the day. Yesterday went on a bit of a solo adventure on the river and caught a few fish and videotaped a couple bears. It's pretty cool. Got some real killer content of footage of bears fishing, swimming, and stuff. And then I eventually made my way down river to my friend's private property, where there's this I've mentioned him before, this big old bruiser of a bear. And every single person around here has either had grief with him or seen him basically every day, every second day. And him and I just keep missing each other. It's kind of funny. So last night I hid on the river on my inflatable boat, tied up to some bushes, and I stood there in the pouring rain. I was there for about 2 hours, hour and a half. And because it wasn't raining yesterday, it was great. And then it was probably, I thought it was like maybe 8 minutes of seeing light left. I'm like, alright, I'm out of here. So I ended up walking all the way home. In my rain gear, with all my shit. And the second I got home, my buddy goes, he showed up, he's here. He sent me pictures of this Godzilla thing, showed up right where I was. Right where I was, right when I left. Classic rookie move, right? So this morning I headed back down there with the quad and my trailer. I've got a trailer for my inflatable boat to pull it out downriver. And I pulled in my quad trailer in the dark, and then I slipped down and got into my inflatable on the river, which is almost full of frickin' water. But I had my waders on, rain gear, and I stood in my boat. This is the cool part I'm trying to get to. So I'm standing in the inflatable underneath a huge alder tree on the edge of the river, and there's brush that grows over the edge of the river, and it is pissing rain out there. It is still. I'm standing there, and I'm standing there, and I'm standing there, and I'm standing there, it's getting light out. It's pretty light. It's been light out for a while now. Well, no, I had a bit of light, seeing light for a bit, because it's still gloomy and dark. And all of a sudden I hear this hiss. Like I could have swore I heard a hiss at me. I'm like, what? I'm looking downriver. Shore is this way. I'm looking downriver. In front of me, upriver. Nothing. I'm looking across the river. Nothing. And then I glanced upriver, and I noticed this piece of driftwood coming down the river. I'm looking at the driftwood, and as I look down, and I'm not kidding you, I'm looking down at an angle like this. Right there. Right there. It's this great big bear in the water. And I guess what happened was he was swimming in the river, down the river, in the brush overhang, I guess looking for salmon in there, and swam right into me. And of course I'm standing up, looking up over the bank and looking along both sides on land, to the left and right, and it's absolutely noisier than hell. I got my rain jacket on, a hood on. You can't hear shit. You'd never hear anything coming up to you swimming in the river anyway. And there's salmon, the odd salmon's jumping all over the place. There's nothing but noise. It was such a weird experience to go, whoa, right there, like right there. He was probably, I don't know, 5 feet from me, I guess. So I guess he spun around and he was paddling like a son of a bitch trying to get up current away from me. So I watched him for a while, and then he disappeared up in the brush overhang. Then I guess he came up out of the river and then he walked by me on land. Stops like right there, 10 yards from me, kind of looks at me disgusted like, and then carries on and takes off into the forest. So that was my morning. It was pretty cool. But anyway, a little more babbling, right? More voices. Excuse me. I hope that's a smudge in these things. So I guess my last pair, I don't know. Anyway, give me a second here. They'll have to do. All right, this is, oh yeah, I remember this. I'll share it again. What, was there two back there? All right, sorry. This is titled UFO on Your Broadcast. At the 6:01 mark, I paused it. One behind you and one in the distant sky above the hill. The video title is Why Did the Bad Guys Kill Our Scientists? And a stump rose up to something or other, right? So type that in if you want to check out the video. Now, I'll post this up, share it again. And I remember this. This is back in the big early days of COVID. This is the Duffy Lake Highway. Wow, I didn't know there was two. I knew there was one. You really blew it up. And somebody sent me the video clip. And in the video clip, you see this object. On the video, you can see the object come into view of us and then disappear again in the screen. It's really, really crazy. And I think that's the second or third time somebody has caught a blatant, in those mountains, a blatant flying object going through the sky behind me. It's happened a couple times. And I recently saw a clear photo, that's in Pemberton where I was living, clear photo of this pewter colored disc in the sky, broad daylight in the Pemberton Valley, which I am so familiar with, it's silly. It's always been a hotspot for UFO sightings, strange lights sightings, and of course the hairy people sightings. Chronic. The Pemberton area, Mount Currie, Duffy Lake, the Whistler Set Squam, the whole zone, right? That's interesting that you caught that. And I'll share it again. Thanks for that, man. I'll share the pictures. And yes, I've seen this already on the video. It's something else. But, same old shit. There's your video. Now what are you going to do? Talk about it at coffee and it disappears out of your brain in 7 minutes. Right? If it makes it that long. Alright, now this is titled, excuse me. This is titled Red now. This is titled Mississippi Bigfoot Howl ? Greetings from the South. I'm finally putting my story down in an email after listening to so many others on your channel. I've attached a screenshot of the property involved with an X for the cabin location and the stargazing field outline. It was summer 2015. I was living in a remote location in Amite County, Mississippi. Amite. I'll tell you about the howl first. Then I'll share a connection I didn't make at the time, but have since understood after hearing so many stories from your viewers. Isn't that a golden tool? Listening to everybody? I woke from a deep sleep around 1 o'clock in the morning to a strange distant sound. At first I thought I was hearing a tornado siren. Slowly the pitch descended, and in the few seconds it took me to wake up, I realized it was vocal and was coming from my property. I knew instantly it was coming from the area near the creek or river on the map I've attached. The lung capacity was incredible. Not a panther, not a cow, not a dog howl. It was obvious that the sound was being made vocally through the mouth. But the volume and duration were unbelievable. It started off sounding almost exactly the same pitch as a tornado siren. Wow. As it descended, it got lower and lower and ended in a very low pitch akin to a deep male voice. The duration was just a few seconds. I'm not sure if it had been going on longer, and that's what had initially awakened me, but I only heard it in the one time since I was awake. As it finally terminated, I could hear coyotes yipping and barking like crazy. There were two on my property. Oh, sorry, they too were on my property. I was uneasy, but very tired and groggy. I stayed awake a while and listened nervously, but never heard it again. Eventually I got back to sleep. Now, the connected dots. About a month or two earlier, shortly after I moved into this literal cabin in the woods, I wanted to do some stargazing. I've been an astronomy enthusiast since I was young, and the remote location of this place meant I would have one of the darkest skies I've ever seen. I waited until dark, and, not wanting to walk the long distance to the backfield, drove my car there. The path was clear because the owner drove his work truck on the property quite a bit, so there was almost a road to the backfield. I parked and looked out my driver's side window at the sky. It was breathtaking. I opened the door and got out with my binoculars, and was instantly gripped by a panic and fear that almost choked me. Mind you, I have spent countless hours under the stars with binoculars, telescopes, lounging on blankets and stargazer, etc. I assure you I had no fear of the dark and no fear of the woods. I grew up on a 15-acre rural property and loved the woods, but this panic was paralyzing. I immediately got back in my car. I didn't even want to look out the window anymore at the Milky Way. I just wanted to get out of there fast. I never could figure out why I was so overcome with fear that night. After I began watching your channel, it became pretty clear to me. I moved shortly after the howl incident for unrelated reasons. I never felt comfortable on that property after, though. I know it's not exciting, not very interesting, but I know I'm not crazy. I'm glad I've finally been able to understand the panic attack. Thanks for all you do, Greg. Greg, we couldn't do shit without you, man. People like you. There you go. What a pattern that is. The terror. And that description of those screams, howls, shrieks, whatever you want to call it, are basically identical from people around the world, right? Identical. Alright. Thanks for coming out, man. Appreciate you emailing. I'm glad you found the place too. Now, dear Steve, no need to share my name. Here's the story a friend shared with me about his encounter. Because of this story, I became interested in all things Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and Sabe. I stumbled onto your How to Hunt site and have been fascinated by all the people's stories as you read them. Thank you for doing this, as it is a real outlet to get these often difficult recounts off our chests, so to speak. I think it is so hard for many because it is both fearful internally and can be embarrassing outwardly when your friends and family ridicules us for sharing. Anyway, my rant for the day. On to the story. This happened in a remote wooded area of northern Minnesota, about 35 miles west of Duluth. My friend is telling me all this several years ago. He said he was out taking a sauna after doing some... Oops, sorry guys. Excuse me. He said he was out taking a sauna after doing some summertime haying and evening farm chores. The sauna was about 340s down from the farmhouse and set back on the road near a small creek. Alright, you just screwed up on a typo on the distance, no big deal. He was sitting on a stump taking a cool-off session between periods of super hot sauna sweat sessions. This was typical of those Finnish tradition. This was atypical of those of Finnish tradition. As a bit of background, we had become friends from having a commonality of our family church and raising small children at the time, and a great love for hunting in the outdoors. He had invited me out to hunt with him on the land surrounding their family farm and adjacent acreage. After getting to know him better for 3 years or so, he asked me a few questions, which led me into him story telling me. First, he asked me if I was ever in the woods and felt that something was watching me. I thought, no, not really. Then he showed me a book he had, and I saw it was about Bigfoot tales and old stories from old times of miners, woodsmen, and railroad men. I said I had heard about Bigfoot and had even seen the Patterson-Gimlin film clip shown at our local theater. This was way back in the late 60s, during the intermission of an outdoorsman movie. This must have been shortly after they had filmed the footage. This had fascinated me, as I was a city kid who had a never-ending desire for hunting in the outdoors. Then I remembered a TV documentary narrated by Peter Graves called Monsters, where they had reenacted several Bigfoot encounters that people had witnessed. It made it seem so real. Some of the stories reminded me of what you have been reading from your emails. Very impactful to me anyway. Okay, back to the story. He then floored me when he said he had seen a Bigfoot himself and began to tell me the whole story about how it happened by the family sauna. He's sitting on the stump cooling off a few feet directly in front of the sauna, minding his own business when he felt that strange sense that someone or something was watching him. He was naked and very much alone in that remote spot where the sauna had been built years ago by his Finnish dad. He slowly turned his head back towards the sauna and saw a tall, black, very hairy head and shoulders peering at him from above the eave of the sauna. His first thought was that it was his older brother playing a prank on him in some kind of mask and suit. He yelled out, "I see you," brother's name. Then he realized it wasn't his brother, and adrenaline shot through him instantly. His next thought, it was a bear. In a moment, his woods and farm upbringing brought the thought to him that a bear isn't that tall. The eave of the sauna was a good 6.5 feet from the ground at its lowest, and this being, whatever it was, stood 2 or 3 feet over the sauna roof line. This really shook him, and his fine Finnish hair stood upright. Fear and a sense of impending doom gripped his very being. He said he could feel it into the pit of his stomach. Then the creature went back out of sight behind the sauna momentarily, and then frighteningly reappeared to continue looking at him from the other eave, as if it wanted to get a better angle perhaps. Now he's even more terrified and wanted to run to his truck and get the heck out of there. But then he thought, I'm naked and my clothes are back towards this thing inside the sauna. The creature stood there for what seemed like way too long, just quietly watching him naked on that stump. Then, finally, it quietly moved back out of sight, melting into the woods behind the sauna. I've thought about this often, and after hearing hundreds of other stories of other encounters, I think this might have been a younger Sabe. Just very curious about the hairless beings they shared the land with. He didn't know how long he should wait there until it was safe to make his escape. waiting on that stump with super high adrenaline, in fear. And then after what seemed like another eternity of waiting, he made a decision to go. Or stay, sitting motionless. Should it reappear again? Or maybe bring a few friends too? Would it possibly reappear and chase him down? Finally, he just went for it. He thought, I can't stand it any longer. He ran into the sauna, grabbed his clothes, and he didn't like the idea of going back towards where it had been. He said he had never gotten dressed so fast in his life. He felt like the thing was still there, peering into the little black back window of the changing room. An eerie feeling for sure. He sped back to the farm in the rusty old farm truck, told his dad and brothers about what he had just seen. They all came back with lanterns and their deer rifles and looked around the sauna. They didn't see any distinct footprints, just the grass around the back was matted down. A lot. They never saw the creature again. Since then, I've taken a keen interest in this subject as to what did my friend actually see? He didn't know exactly what it was at first either, not until he happened upon an old book with pictures and drawings about Bigfoot encounters, and figured that was what it was. This all occurred in the mid to late 70s. He was about 18 or 19 at the time. He was a hard-working family man, totally honest, and not at all a jokester. In fact, it took him several years of friendship until he felt comfortable sharing this with me. I doubt he had ever told anyone else either. Now, years later, and at 65 myself, I find out how fortunate I am to have had many years of hunting and fishing in the great wooded areas around northern Minnesota and Ontario, and then stumbled across your channel online. I appreciate your way of letting the people share the stories and experiences. I personally have never seen a creature such as this. Part of me wants to see one, maybe from a safe distance. Yet another part fears what it would do to me inside. I've been watching your channel for 3 years or so and have come to really enjoy the emails from the people. I find I am building my own puzzle from all the encounters you have read. I think you really are helping people cope with these strange and unasked for experiences. Sorry about your loss of Mr. Macaroni. Wishing you and Sarah all the best. Keep up the good work. Kindest regards. Love to see you on those live hunts. Okay, man. Absolutely am stoked that you found the channel and knee-jerked you into sharing, and you're learning, and you formed your own puzzle. Perfect. Because that's what we encourage everybody to do, right? Keep gathering the pieces to your puzzle. And then if you feel like it, come back and share what you got with everybody here. And this might help somebody else's puzzle, right? Gold. Absolute gold. It's funny, I mentioned before about how those guys in the northern oil field, northern BC, and that one come out of the darkness and was just circling around. They're up in the tower with that flame up there burning off the methane or whatever it is. And the thing was just looking up at them in awe, basically going around, squatting and looking up. And to me, I explained earlier, it just seems to me like that being had just got here. Because there is dozens of those oil field towers riddled all over the place up there. And he's acting like he's seen his first one. How's that? If you grew up here, you were born in the dirt right there, you've been around these things all your life. And they're easy to avoid. So when you hear a story like you just shared, your buddy in the sauna, and here's this thing standing there looking at him on this property that's been owned for how long, nobody's ever seen anything like it, and all of a sudden, boom. There's this huge, what was that described as? 9.5, 10 foot tall being standing there staring at the dude in what could be curiosity, amazement, whatever. And they even had to get another look on the other side of it, right? How come? Is this your first rodeo? Did you just get here? You know what I mean? There's two, for me, in my puzzle, there's just too many indicators that, from reactions, actions, that these beings just aren't here full time. Maybe. It's always a maybe, right? They might not be here full time. Because if, how about that other woman, that lady, and her son, excuse me, saw that, her son thought it looked like a man riding a horse out back in that valley by the water pump house. And she looked back and she knew how tall it was by the eave on the water pump metal roof. And she said it was like going bush to bush to bush, like I gotta get out of here. Okay. Why do you got to get out of here all of a sudden in broad daylight in a rural setting where there's ranch, home, rural, home, in the bottom of this tight valley where if you come into that valley, I don't give a shit. You come into that valley at nighttime or daytime, you're seeing the people. Humans are so easy to avoid, it's ridiculous. And yet here's this massive being in behind somebody's home, just outside their back fence in the bush, going dodging tree to tree to tree like it's trying to get the hell out of here. Huh? Doesn't remotely make sense for a, what do you even refer to as, subspecies of human being that was born here, hit the dirt years ago, grew up here. I think you grow up here, I don't give a shit who or what you are. Humans are the easiest thing to avoid. If you don't need fire, their food, or fuel, or clothing, right? Plane overhead. Anyways, I'm blabbling. Let me shut my mouth quick. Thanks again for sending that in, man. Absolutely appreciate it. Don't stop. If you've got some awesome puzzle pieces, please send them in. Somebody here's going to benefit from them. No subject in this email title. Hi Steve, 2 short stories. My family loved camping and fishing. As young boys, me and my brothers were all over the woods day and night. When we camped, Mom and Dad had a small pop-up camper. Us boys slept in tents unless it was raining. And I mean every night, I would have nightmares about something carrying me to this small cave. It would have me under its arm, and as we got closer, it would have me under its arm. And as we got closer to the cave would open up larger to let us in. And that would be the end of it. I could never see the arm or face of what was carrying me, but I could feel its hair on the arm long, and of course like a beard. The other time I was 16 or 17 walking the bank fishing. I was way back in the lake bass fishing. The reeds and grass is very tall close to the bank. I couldn't walk through it, too thick. But as I got further down the lake, I kept feeling like something was watching me. Creepy feeling. But I kept fishing. And then I heard something running through the tall grass, and I would turn around but see nothing. I kept hearing the noise, and I timed it and turned around and seen the top of what I guess was its head. Very dark brown color. It scared the hell out of me. And I started to go back slowly, still fishing a little. The reeds and grass were at least 7 to 8 feet tall, and I'm 6'3", and it hovered over me. I heard whatever it was walking in the grass for another 100 yards till I got to open ground. I walked the rest of the way to my truck, and occasionally I thought I heard something up on the cliff above me, but never saw anything. I'd seen it in the grass about 5 times, but never got a good look at it, and no smell. Other things have happened over the years at that lake. Rock throwing, weird noises. Also, my youngest brother had nightmares about fighting large bears, but no bears in southern Indiana. End of email. Short, straight to the point. Alright, so I'm guessing that's Indiana, right? There you go. More members inducted into the Club of No Return. Okay, this has been red, I know that. Why was it not marked as red? I gotta get myself organized today. I'm really trying to figure out when I can whip down to the United States real quick, so we can really get a huge ball rolling here for us, maybe even the rest of the world, right? There we go. My brain just spat out my mouth, uncontrollably, uncontrolled. Okay, what's this? Oh, this is from Edgar. Sorry. Private between Edgar and I. Okay. Alright, hold on a minute. Let's get to another folder where there may be a bunch that haven't been heard yet. Who else? Alright, this is titled Good Hue Lake, New York. Goodhue Lake, New York. Dear Steve, I took my two young sons night fishing. Goodhue Lake in New York State. It was springtime and frogs and peepers were so loud it was deafening. To the left of where we were, timber met the water's edge. An owl began hooting 40 yards in the timber. I replied back with a hoot of my own. This was repeated 5 or more times. And that is when an ungodly roar/growl came from where the owl had been hooting from. Everything became dead silent, and again it roared. It felt and sounded like it was coming from concert speakers. The sound passed through my body. Their rage and anger was clear. Leave now or dead. I looked at my 2 sons and said, let's go now. I've never felt so powerless and small. For 20 years I've tried to find something to describe it to. Black bears are 400 pounds and that's rare. There's nothing big enough to make that sound I heard. No cats, fox, or coyote. One day on your channel you had a guy cutting wood recordings. My hair on the back of my neck stood up. Oh, that recording. Yeah, that was from Fort McMurray, just south of Fort McMurray, Alberta. My hair on the back of my neck stood up and my heart pounding as I listened. You are right, it changes your life and the way you think about what is really out there. Thanks for helping the people who have unfortunately came into contact with these beings. Share this if you want. Glenn. Glenn, shared. Appreciate you, man, for taking your time out of your life to send that into us with the location. Absolutely appreciate it. So I'm guessing you must have meant that sound recording sounded like what you heard, right? And that recording, I remember that one. That is one hell of a sound. That's a holy shit sound. Whew. I don't give a shit who you are. How confident you are. That sound coming from the bushes in front of you would absolutely change you forever. Without a doubt. Goodhue Lake, New York. Anybody else from Goodhue Lake area have something similar you want to share? We're here, man. Get it to us. Get it to the people. We don't know what's all out there is the title of this email. Hello Steve, you can share this and use my name if you want. I live in southeast Minnesota. Time period of the experience is 75 or 76. I was hunting in the hills and bluff area of southeast Minnesota. I've been hunting on this particular piece of land for a number of years for deer, grouse, and squirrels. On the day of my experience, I was hunting grouse. It was a warm September afternoon. I was hunting along a well-used game trail. A few yards ahead of me was a rock outcropping and some juniper bushes. I could not see past the outcropping. As I got closer to the outcropping, all of a sudden every hair on my body stood up. I had goosebumps on my entire body. What was really strange was that on this warm day, all of a sudden it was cold. I could see my breath when I exhaled. Suddenly I felt there was danger near. That's an interesting point made, not common. I shouldered my shotgun and I took a few steps closer to the outcropping. Then is when I received a clear message in my mind that stated, if you continue, you will die. At this point, I backed up a few yards. It was now warm again. I could not see my exhaled breath. My goosebumps were gone and my hair felt normal, and this puzzled me. Without a doubt. I decided I wanted to see what caused all the sensations. As I moved towards the outcropping again, all the weird sensations came back. When I pressed forward, I received the message, if you continue, you will die. Again. I then decided not to press forward and backed out of the area. Next weekend, a friend and I returned to the same place. I told my friend about my experience the weekend before. We proceeded, shotguns at the ready. As we approached the outcropping, no sensations at all. We rounded the outcropping with no issues. Over the years, I hunted that area many times and I never had an experience again. I'll never know what caused my experience. You might. You might. I feel we really don't know what is all out there living or visiting our planet. I've always believed Sasquatch is alive and well out there. There's too many carvings, paintings, and oral history stories, etc. to back that up. Don Wendorf. Don, appreciate you, man. And I'm glad you didn't have anything bad happen to you there. That would be a very upsetting, alarming experience for anybody. It's funny when you just explain what happened, and I was just picturing, what if you had some kind of momentum and you couldn't stop yourself going forward? Like, say, me drifting down the river, the flooding river in my inflatable right now. Who's to say when or where something like this is going to be occurring, right? I mean, what would happen? Let's just say you're in a plane, I don't know, who knows? I don't know. You cannot erase the fact that just shit's going down. All of a sudden, somewhere right there is going on that we're not familiar with, and it's dangerous. And it's obviously not there all the time. For whatever reasons, someone may know. What happens if you've got momentum that you can't stop in time? Then what? You become a missing person? Are you deemed as guilty because you could not react to the warning, so they kill you? When meanwhile you already had the momentum that you couldn't stop? Like, say, I don't know, going downhill on a mountain bike, floating down a river in a canoe or an inflatable. You don't really have too much control. A plane. What else? I don't know. A horse? A horse going on a run, you can't stop him? I don't know. I'm just trying to think of how you would have momentum that you couldn't abruptly stop, and all of a sudden you got that message, you go anymore. If you go forward anymore, you're gonna die. I can't stop. Why are you gonna kill me? I'm not doing this on purpose. You know what I mean? It's really confusing. It doesn't make sense. But you can't ignore the fact that shit's going down. Do I believe this person? 110%. 110% I do. Thanks for sending that in to us, man. Alright, here comes another one. Bigfoot tracks and scare around a campfire. Alright, hey Steve, I live up in Fort St. John, BC. Alright. Back in 2009, I was up the Buick Creek Mile 73 off the right and 110 kilometers up staying at a camp. Okay, I'm very familiar with the whole area, especially Buick. I've got a couple friends of mine that live in Buick. Hold on a minute. There was a fire back there and I was on a cat. I worked for a couple of days and it rained us out. So then I went for a walk around the nearby dugout across the road from the camp. And I have a fish tank at home. So I seen a snail in front of the makeshift pallet dock. And I put it in the container. Then I went around the lake looking for other snails. When I came around the west side of the small pond, I come upon a large track, 16 inches long by 4 inches wide at the heel. The weird thing is it only had 4 toes. One massive big toe. The size of my heel. Holy shit. A massive big toe the size of your heel. And then 3 other toes. There's 5 tracks down to the side of the dugout. All the same 4 toes. You can see where he was standing there. Then crouched down to get water. And then there was 3 big sausage-sized finger impressions of the knuckles in the ground, where he pushed off to stand back up. And then 3 other tracks up a little embankment. Then once he walked on the undisturbed ground, there was nothing. I think the smell of camp cooking probably drew it in. I looked around the camp dumpster. I never seen any tracks, but it was very packed down area. So they're likely, it's a few typos. They're likely they will probably grab it in the bags from the dumpster and take off with them, because I would be if I was starving out in the bush. Then the next day we went back towards the fire after the rain was done, and we went to the cats and loaded them. Before we did that, I walked around the lease. Excuse me. I could see old weathered tracks 7 feet apart, just like the ones at the dugout. And I went across the lease. Here comes Adventure Dog, finished with their bone. Hey Bubs, you all done? Sorry you guys. Start back on that again. I could see old weathered tracks 7 feet apart, just like the ones at the dugout. And went to cross the lease. Can see with it. Must have walked across the mud a couple months back or in the springtime. I want to go up there and do some more exploring. Back in the day, my dad's friend was up there doing seismographing. They stayed the night, made a camp during the night. They had a fire, and there was a time when there was rocks thrown and logs and wild animals running around open and screaming around the camp scared the shit out of them. Somebody went for a drive to grab a rifle and come back and made a couple shots. And they took off for the night. It scared the hell out of them. So it might be worth going camping up there and checking it out in a few different areas. Back in 2010, my brother was doing line locating 85 miles north up the highway from mile 73 turn. He came upon a big set of tracks in the snot in the middle of nowhere. They crossed the pipeline he was marking out. Its strides are about 7 feet broad and 16 3/4 inches long prints. Message me one day if you want to come up north and have a guide. I know every road, north Fort St. John, Dawson, Hudson's Hope, and I got a big cabin cruiser for going up Williston Lake, the biggest lake in BC. All right, there we go. A few typos in there, no big deal. Got it. Coincidentally, I'll be up there, I don't know, less than 2 weeks again. I don't know how anybody rips around that lake with that wind, man. That is the windiest lake ever. And I'd imagine, I don't know how you would rip along in that lake with all the deadfall in there, because it's a dammed up lake, right? So there's got to be logs and treetops everywhere in that water. Thought about that, dragging a boat up there to go moose hunting and stuff and exploring. It's a big lake. Anyway, yeah, I'm absolutely familiar with all that, everywhere, all the above that you just mentioned. Excuse me, and we've had countless people from all the above email in experiences, especially along the Peace River and Pink Mountain. Pink Mountain, there's a lot going on there. Just up from Fort St. John and the Peace River, there's a lot going on there. The Halfway Reserve, lots going on there. The Halfway River, Williston Lake, North Hudson Hopes, where I had my knife put back in my pack, and I had the anxious evening with the booms coming to the timber. Yeah, it's endless, right? It's endless. Endless, endless. The Pine River. Pine Pass. Everywhere. Everywhere. I don't think I'd take up an offer to go looking, because I firmly believe what you look for is what you, what I'm about to say. Whatever it is, you go looking, and you're going to find, and they're going to look for you. Same time, right? You reap what you sow. Is that what I'm trying to say? Maybe? I don't know. I'm a little tired. Let's get this one more, then I'm going to get ripping. This is titled Third Experience. Good afternoon, Steve. I've written twice before about my previous experiences. 10 years old, Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. And 20s in North Carolina mountains. I mentioned feeling very uncomfortable at 4 to 5 a.m. in the dark, letting out my chickens before work. I live in Arkansas, actually 2 hours from Folk, Arkansas. 70s movie Legend of Boggy Creek. I've lived there since '94. Last week at my normal time around 4 to 45 a.m., I'm letting out my second coop on the opposite end of my yard. It was really clear and quiet. I heard a clear whoop. I froze. I thought to myself, no way. Then, oh shit. My Doberman is in the house, and so is my 9mm. My property is surrounded by hay fields and pasture, about 80 acres. Then goes to woods and a creek. Then I heard it again, a whoop. It made my hair stand on end and my skin crawl. I beelined for the back door. The next day I mentioned to my partner what had happened, and he said last week he was out with Samson, my Dobie, at about 3 a.m. as usual, and heard not 2 but 4 distinct whoops. Hey, no, you don't fight that. My dog disappeared. He was hiding in the bushes, scared to death. I always thought of, what if? Now I know. All I could think of was, don't eat my chickens and leave me alone. I'm now 65 and I don't need the stress. You never know if and when this can and does happen. We've been watching you for a couple of years now. Keep doing what you're doing. It brings it out in the open. And by the way, my partner loves his hat. Robin in Arkansas. Hey. Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for emailing us and giving the encouraging words. I won't stop doing what I'm doing. Although the dog wants me to stop right now, don't you? Don't you? Don't you? She non-stop wants to play. Non-stop. She gives that look like, let's go. Let's go. Right? Where's your bone? You already ate that bone? Seriously? Excuse me. Then at nighttime, she always needs to wrestle with me at nighttime. It's hilarious. And I take her down hard. Like I smash her in the ground. Fish. And she's never let out a yelp once. It doesn't back down. It's almost a little nerve-wracking, maybe. See what kind of a monster I'm creating. But she just wants to play with me. Non-stop. Like right now. Right? Not the shirt. No, not the shirt. When are you going to act like an old porch hound dog? Are you ever? I'm trying to get a bear for you to chew on. This is it. It's not going to stop. Right? It's not going to stop. Anyway, there you go. Share my story. Dog hairs. Oh, man. Why are you so hairy? Share my story at howtohunt.com, you guys. Get it off your chest. Get that knowledge out. And I'm going to be getting caught up here, maybe today. I'm going to be getting caught up. Somebody sent me a whole pile of files while I was hunting with all of their life research on these beings. I'm going to go back and find where I put those or find where they are and save them up in one place again and go over it. And I also have to get some emails out to the south today. See what's going on down there and when is a good time for me to come down. Not the shirt. And then, leave me alone, big bully. And then I'm going to get the ball rolling as fast as I can, as much as I can, so I can get all the knowledge shared with the planet before it's too late. Right? Anyway. What does this mean? You want me to go outside in the rain? You want me to beat you up? 3 down? Body slam you again? Yeah? Goofy dog. Alright, let's go. Let's go. Let's get this day going. Come on. I'll be back, you guys. Come on.